It's almost surreal, isn't it? That kind of quiet.
Yeah, especially where you don't expect it, like a busy border crossing.
Right. A place usually teeming with history and, well, let's face it, a fair bit of daily drama.
Theatrical drama, almost.
Exactly. But just picture this. The usual stream of pilgrims suddenly just stopped, halted,
Uh-huh. And that beating retreat ceremony, the marching, the high kicks.
gone. Just silence. That's the scene right now, today, along the India-Pakistan border.
We're talking about two big things happening almost at once. The Kartarpur Corridor closing.
And the cancellation of that whole spectacle at Attari-Wagah. Both happened on May 7th, 2025.
And the reason behind it all, the core issue, seems to be Operation Sindoor.
Yeah, that's India's response as we understand it. Missile strikes on what they call terror camps inside Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir.
And this came right after that awful attack in Pahalgam, April 22nd. 26 tourists killed. Just terrible.
It really throws it into sharp focus, doesn't it? How tangled up everything is.
Absolutely. You've got, like, big power politics, deep religious faith, even this border show.
All caught in the same net. So we've been digging into the reports, the official statements, trying to piece together what's really going on.
Okay, so let's maybe start at the beginning. The trigger. That terrible attack in Pahalgam, April 22nd.
Yeah, 26 lives lost, tourists. A horrific act in Jammu and Kashmir.
And Indian authorities, they quickly blamed a group called the Resistance Force, or TRF.
Right, TRF. And the important link there is...
Well, the belief is that TRF is essentially a front group for Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Lashkar-e-Taiba, a group with a long, troubled history operating from Pakistan.
Precisely. So that attack set the stage for India's response.
A really devastating event. And India's reaction was, well, pretty fast and significant. Operation Sindoor, May 7th. Reports talked about missile strikes hitting about 9 alleged terror camps.
Yeah, inside Pakistan and Polk. Locations like Bahalpur, Muridke were mentioned.
And the Indian military line was very clear, targeting only terrorist infrastructure. They stressed that, didn't they? Intentional avoidance of civilian or military casualties.
That was the narrative from Delhi. But Islamabad, a very different story.
Strong condemnation, right.
Very strong. They denied only terror camps were hit, alleged civilian deaths, and called it, quote, an act of war.
Wow. An act of war? That's serious language.
And there were reports, still a bit murky, but reports of the Pakistani Air Force responding too. It just escalated things immediately.
And the diplomatic fallout was, like, instant. You could feel the temperature drop.
Definitely. Beyond the military stuff, India took some big diplomatic steps. Suspending the Indus Waters Treaty, for one.
That's huge. That treaty's been around forever, survived other conflicts even. Suspending it is a major statement.
It really is. It raises all sorts of questions about water resources down the line. Then they expelled Pakistani diplomats.
And crucially for what we're focusing on, they closed the Attari-Wagah border.
Which brings us straight to the Kartarpur Corridor.
Explain the significance of that corridor again. It's quite unique.
It really is. It's this short 4.7-kilometer visa-free path. It connects Gurdwara Dera Baba Nanak on the Indian side to Gurdwara Darbar Sahib in Pakistan.
Which is the final resting place of Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism. Hugely important.
It's immensely important for Sikh pilgrims. It's a sacred site for them.
And its opening back in November 2019, that was a landmark moment, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Timed for Guru Nanak's 550th birth anniversary. Allowed up to 5,000 pilgrims a day. No complex visas needed.
It felt like a genuine bridge, you know?
Yep.
Built on faith, connecting people despite the politics.
A rare positive development, really. So for you, the listener, seeing something like this suddenly shut down is quite jarring.
And then, bam, May 7th, 2025, the flow just stops. Pilgrims arrive at Dera Baba Nanak.
Full of anticipation, no doubt.
Only to be told, nope, closed. The Home Ministry cited the tensions after Operation Sindoor. Just like that.
Leaving people stranded, disappointed. It's a real contrast to the last closure, remember?
Yeah.
During COVID in 2020.
Right. That was a global health thing, affected everyone. This feels different.
Very different. This is pure geopolitics, mistrust boiling over again.
We heard that quote from a pilgrim from Shahid Bhagat Singh Nagar. It was powerful.
The one saying faith isn't terrorism.
Yeah. Why punish pilgrimage for acts of terror? It really highlights the human angle, the people caught in the middle.
It does. And then there's that whole issue of the fee Pakistan charges.
The $20 per pilgrim, India keeps asking them to drop it, but they haven't.
No, it adds this sort of commercial layer to a deeply spiritual journey.
Which makes the fact they'd agreed to extend the corridor agreement until 2029 seem Well, ironic now.
Completely ironic. A commitment made, and then events just sweep it aside. It shows how fragile these things can be.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly to the other side of the border closure impact. Attari-Wagah and the Beating Retreat.
Ah, yes, the daily border spectacle.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, it's quite something. Every evening, sunset approaches.
And you have the Indian BSF troops and the
Yeah.
Pakistan Rangers putting on this incredible show.
The synchronized marching, those impossibly high kicks, the intense stare down across the gate.
It's pure theater, but it draws huge crowds on both sides. It's a tradition going way back to 1959.
And usually there are these little moments, right? Exchanging sweets on Eid or Diwali,
Right.
a handshake between commanders.
Exactly. Small gestures, but symbolic in that environment.
But things changed after Pahalgam, even before Operation Sindoor.
Right. The BSF announced they were scaling down the ceremony first.
Meaning?
No opening the gates, no handshake, just a more subdued version, a signal of the tension.
And then after Operation Sindoor on May 7th.
Canceled. Completely stopped. No word on when or even if it'll come back in its old form.
It's interesting, though. People have really different views on that ceremony.
Oh, definitely. Some see it as, a bit much. Over the top. Showmanship or even clownery, some have called it.
I remember seeing a retired lieutenant general quoted calling it nautanki, like a street play, a drama.
Yeah, suggesting it should just stop. But others see it very differently.
It's a symbol.
As a powerful symbol, yeah. National pride, maybe, but also this weird unspoken connection across the line.
Like, even in the aggression, there's a shared ritual. It's become part of the landscape for decades.
So its absence now is really noticeable. It highlights how differently people interpret these national symbols.
Okay, let's dig back into Operation Sindoor itself for a moment. What more do we know?
Well, as he said, May 7th, 2025, missile strikes targeting alleged Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba stronghold.
Inside Pakistan and Pak, places India has long claimed are hubs for these groups.
Now, the Indian Army released videos. They claimed these showed precision hits.
Targeting infrastructure, they maintain.
Right. And National Security Advisor Ajit Doval called it a calibrated response.
Calibrated meaning? What exactly?
Meaning, basically intended to send a message, hit specific targets, but not to escalate into a wider conflict. Though he added India was ready to retaliate further if needed.
And this wasn't just military action. There were those diplomatic moves, too.
Yes, the Indus Treaty suspension, closing the Attari border. Also, reports of a 48-hour deadline for some Pakistani nationals to leave India.
And reducing staff at the high commissions in both capitals.
A significant diplomatic freeze. India's Foreign Secretary, Vikram Misri, said it was all based on credible intelligence about camps fueling cross-border terror.
Presented as a necessary security measure?
From India's perspective, yes. But Pakistan, as we noted, pushed back hard, promised a reply at a time and place of our choosing.
And stuck to their claims of civilian casualties, directly contradicting India.
Exactly. Even drew a brief comment from former U.S. President Trump, showing it got international attention pretty fast.
It's easy to get lost in the politics and strategy, isn't it? But the human cost, that needs focus.
Absolutely crucial. Think about those Sikh pilgrims. Their plans, their sacred journey, just abruptly cut short by the Kartarpur closure.
Yeah. And numbers were already down even before May 7th.
They were. In 2024, the daily average was about 425. After the Pahalgam attack, reports suggest it dropped by half. People were getting nervous.
And then closure. People arriving at Deir Baba Nanak just turned away. Their spiritual journey put on hold indefinitely.
Circumstances totally out of their control. That Pilgrims quote you mentioned earlier really hits home,
Well, personal impact.
Yes. And the Attari border closure, that has real economic bite, too.
It was the only land crossing for trade, wasn't it? Between India and Pakistan?
The only operational one, yes. And vital for trade going towards Afghanistan as well.
So that trade is just stopped.
Effectively ground to a halt, from what we understand. Huge uncertainty for traders, businesses.
And passenger numbers were already falling before this.
They were. Dropped from over 80,000 in 2017-18 to just over 71,000 in 2023-24. Now, obviously, it's zero.
Affecting so many people for so many reasons.
And the personal stories coming out. Pakistani nationals in India, especially women married to Indians, facing visa problems, even deportation.
That story about Saba Kiran saying goodbye to her daughter at Attari, heartbreaking.
It really brings home the individual tragedies wrapped up in these big political moves.
To really grasp what's happening now, you have to see it in the context of the long India-Pakistan story.
Definitely. Since partition in 1947, it's been, well, a roller coaster. Wars, disputes, constant tension.
And against that backdrop, the Kartarpur Corridor really did seem like something different, a positive spark.
It felt like it. A tangible link, fostering people-to-people ties despite everything else.
So its closure now feels like a real setback, a reminder of how fragile that progress can be.
And suspending the Indus Waters Treaty adds another layer of complexity.
Because that treaty has mostly held up, even through bad times.
It has. Pakistan's reaction was expectedly strong. But you also see differing views within India on how hard to push on water issues. It could become another major flashpoint.
So looking ahead, what's the feeling? Just uncertainty.
A whole lot of uncertainty, yeah. The future for Kartarpur, for the Beating Retreat, it's all up in the air.
Pilgrims must be hoping Kartarpur reopens quickly.
No doubt they are. But the tensions are so high right now, it's hard to see that happening immediately.
And the reactions inside India to Operation Sindoor itself seem mixed.
They do. Support from some prominent figures, sure, but questions from others about the timing, the approach.
And you have the families of the Pahalgam victims, understandably demanding more. The emotional impact is immense.
Absolutely. Like Kajal bin Parmar, wanting more action. It's raw.
So the border's quiet today. Physically quiet.
But that silence in India-Pakistan relations,
Yeah.
it can be deceptive, can't it?
History suggests so. Which leaves us with the big question. What happens next? Where do things go from here?
What are the long-term consequences of these actions? It's a critical question for the stability of the whole region.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap where we are. We've walked through the Pahalgam attack.
India's military response, Operation Sindoor.
The resulting closure of the hugely symbolic Kartarpur Corridor.
And the stopping of that daily border ritual, the beating retreat at Attari-Wagah.
And what this all really highlights is that incredibly complex dance between security, diplomacy, faith, and these really potent cultural symbols.
Especially in the India-Pakistan context. It's all tightly interwoven and incredibly volatile.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it leaves you, the listener, with something pretty significant to think about.
Given the history, given the current tensions, what does the path forward actually look like?
What are the potential long-term effects of these recent moves? And maybe most importantly, what's the real human cost, the often unseen cost, when geopolitics shifts like this?
A lot to ponder, and the answers right now are far from clear.